to be with you here this evening in this incredibly beautiful community, to be introduced by the great Mary Tinkler. Let's give it up for Mary! And to have already met so many extraordinary people. You're gonna have to forgive my voice. We started the day in Rock Hill with 600 and no microphone. And I wanted to make sure that I had a chance to reach every single one of them and blew the voice out a little bit in the process. But I gotta tell you, just met your extraordinary state rep, Marvin Pendarvis, who is exceptional. When I asked him about some of the questions that have been posed to us along the campaign trail, in all of the 7.5 days that I've been a candidate for the presidency of the United States, he was able, there's some folks again here in the back, I'm gonna do my best. He was able to answer some of these questions, like how we ensure that every American, every person here in Charleston is able to afford a roof over their head, yes, has the dignity of housing, making housing a fundamental thing that every single American has access to, so that they can pursue their best potential, their job, whatever they're supposed to achieve over the course of their lives. He's made housing and access to it a priority, and he's going to be a leader for me and this country going forward on that important subject.
Right on! Yeah. Yes, yes!
When I listen to the people of this community, can we get any more microphone going? Sorry. There really aren't you. When I listen to the people of this community, those who survived the terrible massacre at Mother Emanuel AME, those moms who demand action, who are here with us every single day of the campaign, those youngest among us, those kids who are going through active shooter drills at their schools, people like Joe Cunningham in the House of Representatives, leading the fight to close the Charleston loophole, to ensure that we have universal background checks for every firearm that is purchased in the United States of America. Because we know that it will save lives. We know that it will improve outcomes. We know that gun violence and this kind of tragedy and losing 30,000 of our fellow Americans every year does not have to be our lot. It is not our fate. We are not owed this. It is not an act of God. It is a human-caused problem with a human solution. And if we listen to the humans around us, the human beings, not the corporations, not the PACs, not the NRA, I'm convinced that we will find the solutions we need to save lives. When we talk about meeting the existential challenge of climate change, and knowing full well that it is our own excesses and our own inaction that has produced the 1 degree Celsius warming that we have seen so far since 1980, and that if we do not act in the 12 years in which scientists say we still have time, those wildfires, those floods here in your community, those droughts that our farmers are suffering through trying to grow this country and this world's food and fiber to feed and to clothe not just Americans but the people of the planet, it will become that much worse. We will visit upon our children and their children a hell that we can only imagine right now. If we're going to take the lead on this issue, I want to follow your lead here in Charleston. No offshore drilling. Freeing this country from its reliance on fossil fuels, investing in renewable energy and the jobs in solar and wind, the two fastest growing jobs in the United States today. Making sure that both our young people and our older people, mothers returning to the workforce, folks whose jobs have been automated out of existence, have purpose, have function, have a living wage upon which they can depend to provide for themselves, for their family, And for this country, I want to make sure that I look to you and others who want to lead on these issues. People who insist that every American should be able to see a doctor, be able to take their child to a therapist, be able to afford the prescription medications, ensuring that we achieve guaranteed, high-quality, universal health care for every woman, every child, and everyone. And that when we say universal health care, in a country, one of whose largest providers of mental health care is the county jail system, where people with schizophrenia, bipolar, and depression get arrested on purpose to get care in the one place that they're guaranteed to get care today, not only at extraordinary cost of their loss of potential, but extraordinary cost to us as taxpayers and payers of insurance. I want to make sure that in a country that is losing people, this is the year 2019, in the wealthiest, the most powerful, the most technologically and medically advanced country on the face of the planet, I want to make sure that we do not lose yet another man or woman to diabetes, or to the flu, or to curable cancers, or lack of political will. And in a country that is suffering a crisis in maternal mortality, 3 times as deadly for women of color in the United States of America, that when we say healthcare, we mean primary healthcare, mental healthcare, and every woman making her own decisions about her own body going forward. I bring you greetings from El Paso, Texas. That was not what I was expecting, but thank you. 1/2 of the largest binational community in this hemisphere, along with Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua, Mexico, 3 million of us speaking 2 languages, with 2 histories, 2 cultures. We are joined, not divided by the Rio Grande River, to form one people, producing something far greater, more powerful, more magical. The sum of the parts, or the people involved, El Paso, Texas, happens to be one of the safest cities in the United States of America. Not in spite of the fact that we are a city of immigrants, but because of the fact that we are a city of immigrants. We have nothing to fear at our connection with the rest of the world. We do not need to spend $30 billion building a 2,000-mile wall. There were 400,000 apprehensions last year. To put it in perspective, there were 1.6 million apprehensions during the second year of the George W. Bush administration. And you and I know by and large who it is we're apprehending, who it is that is turning themselves in. Kids, and if they are lucky, children with their parents, walking, riding atop a train known as the Beast or La Bestia for 2,000 miles, showing up here at our front door at the Texas-Mexico border without a penny to their name, not knowing the language, at their most desperate and vulnerable of their lives. And the way which we have chosen to meet them is to take that child for whom that mother has risked her life, sending that mother back to the very country from which she fled, putting that child in a cage, separating them with no hope or prospect of being reunited again. That cannot be this country. We cannot treat our fellow human beings that way. Instead of wars and militarization and deportation raids against people who have no other home to go, I say we rewrite this country's immigration laws in our own image, through our own values, by our own experiences. Let's make sure that we treat every refugee, every asylum seeker with the utmost dignity and respect. And let's do this for every one of the more than 1 million dreamers in this country. Let's make them U.S. citizens now, and forever free them from any fear of deportation. It is the right thing to do, not just for those families and those dreamers, and those immigrants and those asylum seekers. It is in the best traditions of a country comprised of asylum seekers and immigrants and refugees the world over. This is in our national interest. Now, whether the issue is immigration, whether it is healthcare, whether it is climate change, whether it is ensuring that this economy truly works for everyone and not just the few at a time of unprecedented concentration of wealth and power and privilege, $2 trillion in tax cuts that flow to corporations already sitting on record piles of cash flowing to the wealthy at a time of historic income and wealth inequality in the United States of America. The people of the future, our kids and grandkids, will not be able to believe that at a time of $21 trillion of debt at the time, with $4 trillion in outstanding infrastructure needs, with millions of Americans not able to see a doctor, with school teachers working 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet, that our answer to all of this was to cut a $2 trillion tax break. Let's make sure that our democracy and our economy are reflecting and representing not the corporations and special interests, but human beings, people, our fellow Americans all over this country. In order for us to meet these challenges, we must fix this democracy. It must no longer be captured, corrupted, beholden to those corporations and special interests. We've got to make sure, especially in the states of the former Confederacy, that any active suppression of African American voices and votes is ended. We need a new Voting Rights Act in this country going forward. We need not just to campaign on the promise to get big money out of politics. This campaign operates without a single dime from a single PAC or lobbyist, all people, all the time. Same-day voter registration, the ending of gerrymandering, especially gerrymandering. If we fix our democracy, we will fix this country, and we will be able to reassert our rightful role in helping to lead the world against some of these otherwise intractable problems. For all of those reasons, for all of the good people who are here and part of this campaign, I am running to serve you as the next president of the United States of America. I have no hope of earning your vote, of winning in this state, of effectively serving you as president, if I've not first had a chance to listen to you, to hear from you, to see things from your perspective. We are going to do our best to get as many people into the conversation right now. Feel free to ask a question, to make a comment, to offer some constructive criticism. I'm all ears and I'm here for you. Raise a hand and we'll get to you. Yes, ma'am. Electoral college, yay or nay? I'm a nay on this one. I don't know how this democracy that we care so much about, the greatest mechanism we've ever invented to call forth the true genius of this country, is going to persist when the loser in the last presidential election got 3 million more votes than the victor. One of the ideas that I've heard to improve the Electoral College in the interim, this is going to require a constitutional amendment, is to ensure that every state awards its electors proportionate to the popular vote in that state. That'll force whoever the Democratic nominee is, whoever she or he might be, it'll force the Republican nominee, whoever Donald Trump might be, to campaign in every state to compete for those votes in the different congressional districts. It'll mean that states like Texas and California and South Carolina are no longer written off or taken for granted. So thank you for the question on the Electoral College. I'll come to you, then I'll go to you.
All right, you've got a group of teachers standing right here. And so we want to know a couple of things. Number one, you look around the nation right now and you're seeing teachers walk out because we're not getting paid. We're not getting given the respect that we deserve. So kind of what your platform is in that direction, but also we want to throw in some school choice. Where do you feel?
Okay, couple of questions about school teachers and about school choice, and I'll take by extension you mean public school educators. So nurses, librarians, therapists, counselors, cafeteria workers, school bus drivers, and the educators in the classroom. I mentioned in Texas, half of our school teachers are working a second or a third job just to make ends meet. You mentioned a fourth job, when the most important job is right in front of them, unlocking that lifelong love of learning within that child. Once we have done that, there's no stopping her or him from what they're going to achieve over the course of their life. We know in Texas that school teachers, as badly paid as they are, out of their own pocket, pay not just for the decorations in the classroom, the school supplies for the kid who cannot afford them, but the hot meal for that young girl who receives free and reduced breakfast and lunch but does not have a dinner waiting for her, the new set of clothes for that kid who's shown up in the same jeans and t-shirt Monday through Thursday. By Friday, that teacher, knowing that his ability to learn is connected with his dignity and sense of self-worth, buys a new set of clothes for that kid. And then on top of that, además, we're asking these teachers in a country that loses more than 30,000 to gun violence every year to conduct active shooter drills in our public school classrooms, knowing they may be the ones to stand between that shooter and that child for whom she has already sacrificed so much. So here are my answers to your questions. One, pay every teacher a living wage. One job is enough. Understanding that we have a school to prison pipeline that begins in kindergarten, where a child of color is 5 times more likely to be disciplined, suspended, expelled at 5 years old. Let's ensure that we recruit and retain teachers who look like the students in front of them in those classrooms. Knowing that on the first day of kindergarten, some children will already be 8 months back in reading comprehension, 10 months back in math. First day of kindergarten, let's move the starting line back universally to pre-K for every American child. And then, given all those school teachers are doing the challenges that they face, including high stakes, high pressure, standardized tests, let's make sure that they don't face an additional threat of school choice. We will not allow our public tax dollars to be taken from our classrooms and sent to private schools at the expense of the very viability of their scholarship. So thank you very much. I'm going to ask you, and there's a gentleman over here, I'm going to ask you next.
I'm kind of short.
You're perfect.
Mi pregunta para usted, como latina, ¿qué vas a hacer con nuestra gente con la DACA? What are you going to do with my kids with DACA? They want to prosper. They want to go to college. Yes. Don't limit them. What are you going to do? Tell me today.
Yes. Thank you. Hablé ahorita que somos la ciudad más segura, una de las ciudades más seguras de los Estados Unidos, en mi comunidad de El Paso, porque somos una comunidad de migrantes. Cuando tratamos la gente adentro de nuestras comunidades con respeto y dignidad, vamos a asegurar nuestras comunidades. Los dreamers o los soñadores que están aquí están contribuyendo al éxito de los Estados Unidos, al éxito de South Carolina, al éxito aquí de Charleston. Necesitamos reflejar los valores de los americanos, también de los dreamers. Ellos necesitan ciudadanía para quedar aquí como ciudadanos, para continuar a su máxima potencia. Every dreamer, as I said earlier, should stay here as U.S. citizens to contribute to the maximum potential. Thank you. Gracias.
Hi, Beto.
Hey.
My name's Erica and I'm an ACLU Rights for All voter. And I'm wondering if, as president, would you support lifting government bans on insurance coverage of abortions, such as the Hyde Amendment?
Yes. So the question is lifting insurance bans on providing insurance as a basic component of healthcare. I've made the case that healthcare, in addition to mental and specialty and primary, is also a woman's right to make her own decisions. I also want to say this. That maternal mortality crisis that I talked about, especially bad in Texas, follows our state's closing of more than half of the family planning clinics, making it that much harder to get a cervical cancer screening in our state, that much harder to get any family planning help at all, that much harder to see a provider. And in that time, as we've been losing women at a record rate, we've also seen Texas become the nation's leader in repeat teen pregnancies. So,
universal health care, what about it?
yes, the answer is yes. I'm trying to answer her question though, so I want to be respectful to her. I will get to you. I want to make sure that we understand beyond the right to abortion. Roe versus Wade, 1973, a right that is imperiled now by this administration and their Supreme Court nominees. We're also talking about a woman and a family's basic health care rights. So I want to make sure that we protect those. Answer your questions, yes. On your question, sir, yes, guaranteed, high quality, universal health care for every single American. Thank you, Lewis.
I'm going to go back to you, Cynthia. Are you helping me pick folks?
Hi. My name's Evangeline. I'm from Houston, Texas. Hi. First of all, the amount of traveling you've done is amazing and really speaks to the way that you value the voice of the people. So thank you for doing that. I'm a Christian and I've been praying for you every night before I go to bed because I want you to have safe travels and I really believe in you and that's important to me. I was wondering how you are, as president, how you would change the culture of racism, of white supremacy, that we've seen in this country, that we've seen around the world, especially in New Zealand recently. How will we support our Muslim brothers and sisters? How will we support our black neighbors? How will we support our gay neighbors? How will you change the culture of America in order to support our neighbors?
Thank you, and I'm going to repeat the question for anybody who did not hear it. Thank you. I'm sorry, my voice is not really carrying right now, but I want to make sure that everyone can hear the question and the answer to the question. What do we do about racism in this country, intolerance in this country, Islamophobia in this country and around the Western world right now in the wake of the murders in Christchurch, New Zealand? I want us all to acknowledge that our words have repercussions and the actions that follow. This president, for the last 3 years, we have seen hate crimes increase every single year in the United States of America. We have met children as young as 3rd graders who ask, because they are Mexican American, whether they should be in this country, whether their president does not like them. 3rd graders who are Muslims who ask whether they're in the right place, what that does to that child's head, to their conception of who they are and who they can become in this country. I don't know that we can even imagine the damage that we are doing right now. When the president signed his executive order attempting to ban Muslim travel in 2017, that same day, a mosque in Victoria, Texas was burned to the ground. Those words and those actions are absolutely connected in our country right now. We need to make sure that after a presidency that has described Mexican immigrants as rapists and criminals, that sought to ban all travel from Muslim countries and Muslims from wherever they are, that defined and described white nationalists and Klansmen and Nazis as very fine people, that we have a president and an administration that reflects the genius of this country, that we came from all over the world, that some of us can trace our family tree back 10,000 years in this country. Some of us were brought more than 300 years ago as slaves in bondage and built the wealth of this country with no prospect of enjoying in it. Some of us came as refugees, asylum seekers, and immigrants But as John Lewis, my former colleague and my all-time hero says, no matter what ship you came to this country on, we are now in the same boat, and it's time for us to act on it. So you've got my commitment to do that.
These are our last two questions.
Hey, how you doing today? Doing good. My name's Patrick.
Hey, Patrick.
Hey, I'm a chef in a downtown restaurant. I have a crew, obviously, that works for me. So my question for you is twofold. All right, the first one is basic health care, universal health care as a human right for every single American. What is your stance on that? My second is simple. I have men and women that have worked for me for 3 or 4 years. They're on welfare. They work full time because they make $13 an hour, and that's all my ownership will give them because they're busy on a European vacation for 5 weeks. All right? So when you are working as a full-time employee as an American, and you have to be on welfare just to make ends meet, and I can't do anything to help you, what's your stance on that? That's what I want to know.
So, great question. 2 questions on healthcare. The answer is yes, as quickly as we can. Universal, so no American accepted. Guaranteed, that means even if you have insurance right now, very often you cannot afford the premiums or the copay for the medication that could save your life. We guarantee that care, and that it's universal, high quality for every single American, so that they are well enough to live to their full potential. When it comes to a living wage, you're absolutely right. No one in this country should be working full-time and be living under the poverty level. No one should be working full-time and be on public assistance, because when that happens, not only is it an injustice, not only is it immoral, it means that everyone else is picking up the burden of that employer. We need a conscientious capitalism in this country, a fight for $15 an hour without exception for our fellow Americans. Paid family leave so that you can have a child, take care of your parents, or take care of your kids. And we've got to make sure that the basic costs in our lives to improve our lives, whether that's K through 12 or pre-K through 12, or being able to afford college education at a time that there is $1.5 trillion in outstanding student loan debt. We have to make those investments in people, in ourselves, and in our communities. We have one more? Okay. Thank you.
All right, this is our last question.
By the way, we have a mutual
Here in the coastal regions, and now we're seeing in the heartland as well, flooding and climate change is impacting our everyday lives. How will the federal government get back on track to not only addressing climate change, but mitigating the flooding that is destroying our lives in the everyday economy here in the coastal region and in the heartland?
Thank you for the question. You all understand climate change because you're living climate change. These floods that I'm hearing about in Charleston, whenever it rains, the 58 inches landfall record in Houston 2 years ago, third 500-year flood. The young farmer who came into one of our town halls in Texas, she said she's a Republican, she's never been to a town hall before, and she had to take her son out of his basketball game to show up because she has the farm that her parents passed on to her, that was passed on by her grandparents. But what her grandparents planted and grew, her parents planted and grew, she's planting, and it is not growing anymore. So she said, I have shown up to tell you that climate change is not something we have to prepare for. It is something that is happening right now on my farm. Those droughts, those fires, those floods, the devastation that we're seeing around the world, the Syrian civil war producing the largest humanitarian crisis we've seen since World War II, was precipitated in part by historic droughts that forced people out of the countryside into the cities, provided additional tinder for that political instability in that country. If you are concerned about 400 apprehensions on our southern border, wait until some countries in the Western Hemisphere can no longer support human life, which is exactly the direction we're headed in on this trajectory unless we change. You ask how? Free ourselves from this dependence on fossil fuels, invest in wind and solar and renewable energy, retrofit these buildings, our homes, the way that we get around to ensure that we are not warming ourselves out of our very existence on this planet. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, asked by a farmer in West Burlington, Iowa, why America should bear this burden alone. She's right. If we did everything we could, if we stopped emitting greenhouse gases today in this country, it would still not be enough. But right now, America is the one country on the planet that has removed itself from the Paris Climate Accords, which in and of themselves were not going to be enough to get us where we are. But not only have we set ourselves, but the rest of the world back. China has 4 times the coal-fired plants that we do here in this country. More are coming online every single day. We need to return to our role as the indispensable nation, convening the other countries of this planet together around these shared challenges. That's the only way that we are going to meet it. Thank you for the question. All right, thank you all for all of us.